Okay, well, it's taken us almost a whole day to reach the point of welcoming you, and to some extent, I suppose the meeting really began yesterday or Saturday, depending on how you look at it. But anyway, Lorraine and I would like to welcome you officially now to the 12th Banff Conference. It's been 22 years since the first meeting. And so there are two presentations. One is combined welcome, which is rather brief, and then I'm going to tell you about the newly created Banff Foundation and some thoughts about the future for all of us. We're momentarily stuck on the first slide, but look, more people are coming in the door, so it's all working out. Okay. Technology, don't you love technology? They say that politicians find that if they're late and everybody has to wait, that people remember that talk much better than if they show up on time. And this is a little secret that all politicians know. So if you've ever been to a politician's talk and they were late, that's apparently why. Okay.
It's the same thing, okay? Backward, forward, and release.
Okay. Look at that. Okay. So, we would like to thank everyone who's helped with the preparation for this meeting. And you realize in this transition, you know, for a long time I was personally financially responsible for every meeting. And we had no structure whatsoever. In the future, we will have a very fine, probably the best structure we can possibly have, a Swiss foundation. But this year was a transition, and it meant that the local organizers had really quite considerable challenges. And I think they've done very, very well in every respect. So we really owe a lot of thanks to our local organizers, David, Christina Castro, and Elias David Neto. The conference coordinators have also done a yeoman's or yo-woman's job in keeping us all organized, particularly Akshatha and Fernanda, who have really been the linchpin of the background practical organization of the meeting. And thanks to everybody who helped put together the program. I think you will recognize how really excellent the program is, how well planned it is, how diverse and balanced it is. We've made some choices. Those of you who are looking forward to the case presentations, we just decided there couldn't be any this year. Perhaps we'll find a way to make them part of the next meeting in 2015. But we are very grateful to everybody who helped us plan the program. And now Lorraine is going to take you through more details of the program and the social part of the meeting, and then I'll come back and tell you some other things.
Magic button here.
Yep.
Okay, well, I too would like to thank the organizers, of course, and particularly Mark Haas for the program committee, because we fielded a whole lot of wonderful program suggestions, but it was really Mark that wrestled us all into the format that you see. So, as you know, and many of you have come to the Banff meetings before, and many of you are new to the Banff meeting, I think you'll enjoy the collegial atmosphere. You've already have a sense, I think, of the organization of the meeting. We have our plenary sessions in the morning, which I think are of interest, general interest to all of those from any organ. But then we have our organ-specific working sessions, and these often have very focused themes, as you know, and it's not unusual for there to be multi-center studies and or publications that arise out of those organ-specific working sessions. And you don't have to be here at the meeting. You can be virtually involved. As you saw in the reports this morning from the working groups, very often these studies are being done now with virtual microscopy. There are technical studies that have been done successfully in a variety of centers so that many people who don't actually attend the meeting can be involved. So I would encourage you to get your colleagues involved in some of these activities. The group discussions, I think, are a very powerful part of the program. I do want to point out the luncheon working groups, which also are very fertile ground for networking, for collaboration, for exchange of ideas, and those are very, very well attended at these meetings. The midday poster session will be on Wednesday, and I want to alert all of those that have posters that tomorrow morning you can put the posters up. And I think it would be great if you could do that, because then people can look at them. The display area is outside this room, outside these conference rooms. You'll see the poster boards tomorrow. So if you can get those up and people can look at them for the next day or so, and then it's Wednesday, actually, after the lunch, that there'll be a formal poster session review. And that's a great opportunity for junior investigators in particular to do presentations at the meeting and to network with the senior people. So I encourage the senior people to be at the poster sessions and to interact with these folks. And of course there are a lot of ad hoc sessions. There are very often special interest groups that get together around the pool or wherever. And I think you've already seen again, this is just an outline of the format. We've already had our working group reports, but, the mechanisms of, let me see if I can get this to go back. There'll be a very interesting plenary on mechanisms of ABMR, which I think, again, are of interest to everyone, and a plenary on T-cell mediated rejection on Wednesday, and then molecular markers, which I think will also be very exciting. The group discussions are basically at the luncheon sessions, and then we have in the afternoon the organ-specific sessions. And we try to avoid overlap for the common practice. So for example, a lot of the liver people do kidney, so we try to avoid overlap of liver and kidney. Ideally, I guess, we would have an afternoon or more for every organ-specific system, but when we tried to do that, of course, the Banff meeting became unmanageably long. So I hope that the overlaps that we do have are not terribly disruptive. But as you see, we have kidney, liver, heart, pancreas, composite tissue, and lung. So there's really something of great interest to everyone. And I think a lot of people find that going to sessions even outside their own area of expertise is of considerable interest as well. And of course, there are great speakers at all of these sessions. The group discussions, the one on Tuesday, I think, was of great interest for the kidney group, but other organ systems are also beginning to wrestle with this issue, so this might also be of interest. The C4D negative AMR. Do we consider this particularly in the setting of de novo antibody and later post-transplant? Is this something that we can confidently recognize even in early presenting AMR due to early preformed antibody? I think there's a lot that's going to be a very interesting discussion of potential relevance to a number of organ systems. The discussion on Wednesday will have a number of different focuses, and again, this is quite Reno-centric. The incorporation of the total inflammation score, the reconsideration of the borderline category and whether we can confidently eliminate that, and how we should revise the V lesion classifications. And then the group discussion on Thursday, how can we incorporate non-morphological data into the Banff classification? And this, of course, would be particularly with a focus on molecular studies. And again, while the kidney group, I think, are at that point of considering this issue, certainly other organ systems will be considering these issues soon if they're not already. And then, of course, there's the dinner, which is being held on Wednesday evening, and which should be a great event. And I encourage you all, as you know, the food in this venue is excellent, and I'm sure the gala dinner will be spectacular. And I think many of you who have attended the Banff meetings, the overall philosophy of the meeting and the flavor of the meeting, I think, is what keeps people coming back. And I hope that new people who are just new to the Banff process and the Banff community will also find that this is an attractive aspect of the meeting. It's very inclusive, as you see, with many solid organ systems and many disciplines. We try and get the clinicians, the tissue typers, the pathologists, and others together. We try and make it evidence-based, and certainly the studies that arise out of the discussions and out of the group discussions and working groups are, as you've seen, I hope, generating evidence. It's interactive, and it's designed to have the social aspects of the meeting reinforce the more formal presentations, so that I think people who have common interests can find each other, can interact. And again, it's important for networking, and particularly, I think, for junior people who can network with more senior colleagues in a comfortable and collegial atmosphere. There is a lot of consensus development at the meetings. There are people who lead these discussions that I think are are excellent facilitators, and it becomes a very, very productive session. And as you've seen, this takes place not only during the meeting, but after the meeting and between Banff meetings, so that the agenda for the next meeting begins to take shape before we even leave this meeting. Very goal-oriented, very productive. And the goal, of course, is to provide schematized analysis of allograft biopsies that can and will be implemented worldwide. And so that's why we are trying so hard to reach a consensus, because I think if this does not emerge as an idiosyncratic schema for this organ system or that organ system, but emerges from discussions and sort of a meeting of the minds, these Banff schemas have proven utility in clinical trials, and I think it gives people a common language, really, worldwide. And now we move on to Kim's portion of the talk, but again, I think he's going to thank the sponsors of the meeting, to whom we are very grateful. So
I end up doing a lot of speaking about the future. Of course, predicting the future is in general tough, but if you're predicting what you yourself are going to do, then you can make some prediction about that. So I've recently gotten into analytics. I do a lot of speaking about that, and I predict that I'll have quite a lot to say about that in 2015. Now, it may seem impersonal to you, but I assure you, in an organization the size of this one, that many of you are personally responsible for analytics milestones of one sort or another, and we'll end up talking about that in 2015. In 2017, I think we'll have another poetry session. We cannot have a formal poetry session every time, because over half of you just don't get anything from poetry, so it just doesn't work. So we did poetry in 1999, 2011, we'll do it again in 2017. There can be private poetry, Facebook poetry in the meantime, but not a whole meeting official poetry until 2017. And in 2019, I can imagine myself talking about the future and multitasking. So those are my specific predictions for the future. As Lorraine said, we very much want to thank the sponsors of this meeting. We were in a situation of great uncertainty. It looks like we've done rather well financially, and our local organizers have handled things particularly well. But we're very grateful to all of our sponsors. In the early days of the meetings, we always had money left over from one meeting to the next. And that may happen again this time, which would be very, very nice. And beyond sponsors, we're also very grateful to our partner organizations. And you know that the next meeting in Vancouver will be a partnership with the CST, the Canadian Society of Transplantation. We would like, if we could, to continue to partner with other organizations. That likely means, believe it or not, that the meeting in 2015 will be in February, because that's when the CST traditionally meets. And we'll try not to have it overlap with the planned Renal Path Society Japan renal pathology event, but I think we have enough time that we can avoid overlap. Lorraine and I would like to welcome you to the 12th Banff Conference on Allograft Pathology. If there are any specific questions about that, I'll answer them, but now we're going on to the longer, but still very exciting and dynamic presentation on the Banff Foundation and the future. So do you want to change to the other PowerPoint, please? Thanks. Are there any questions? Fairly straightforward what I've presented.